This episode contains language that is not suitable for minors. Please enjoy responsibly. And now, today's episode. So this is a special episode of The Beatdown. This is a roundtable discussion of Get Back. Hopefully, with the kickoff this weekend, everyone's had a chance to view it. I know I did. And we're opening it up to our special guests today. As our usual panelists and moderators here, John and Chris are with me, but we have two guests, our friends Ray Wilcox and Mike Reilly. I'm excited to hear everyone's comments about what they've seen so far and how the viewing went. I'll say, for me, I kind of, I broke it up where I watched each one per day, but I had to split it up within the day. I didn't have the luxury to sit down and watch the entire episode in one shot, and it kind of was better for me because 2.5 hours
hard to do
of that at one shot. Yeah, and I thought the climax worked. It was great. It started out where it was like, oh my God, how are these guys going to do this in 3 weeks? And then by the end of it, it was like, oh yeah, they're the Beatles and they're professionals, and they just got up there and did it. That was great. But there's lots to talk about, and John or Chris, I
was just going to say, how did everyone feel like I did when I watched the first episode? I was like, oh man, is there going to be anybody else but like the five of us that are going to make it through this thing? Like it was really like, it just struck me as like
it's a lot of material. Yeah.
It's like, people that don't know like who Mal Evans is are going to be interested in this, and then because it felt like it took 2.5 hours to get to the cliffhanger of George walking out. Yeah. Right. And then you're like, boy, I hope it picks up.
But I would say this, I was like, the beginning of it, if you've been listening to The Beatdown, thanks to you guys, all of that history we already got down. It was great. I mean, a year ago, I wouldn't have known any of that.
Well, I think it's interesting to just, one of the things we should talk about is the decisions that Jackson took that,
of course, sure.
Michael Lindsay Hogg took a different, and it's because of the one guy's making a 2-hour movie documentary and highlighting kind of like really like the dissolution of the band, and the other guy's just like saying, well, that kind of like happens early on, and let's move on. But like the whole, how do you pronounce it? Twickenham. That's episode 1, and they kind of move on from it quickly because it's like it's a huge warehouse, and they all kind of cluster around Ringo's drum set, trying to create, like they're trying to start a fire. And so they gather around close together and try to get something going. And they don't have a lot to start with, and they have a deadline. Like Ringo is going to do a movie and he'll be done. He's going to be making this movie. Whatever we're going to do, we got to get it done before that. It's so funny that like, when we think about that, we think of that movie like, and the Let It Be, and like what they were doing is so much more memorable than that movie. But yeah, everyone is like on this deadline of the movie, The Magic Christian, and they've got to like do all this stuff, and it's just like they don't bring a lot to the table at the beginning. They're like, hey, we've got some sketchy stuff. We have to do this impossible thing of putting on a show after about 3 weeks of learning all new material, and it's absolutely, no one,
Ray, what
no
do you
one would ever like say, we can do this. Yes, we can do this.
Yeah.
So,
Ray, what were you gonna?
Going back to what?
Go ahead.
What John?
My question.
Going back to what John said, when I watched the first episode, I had got back from a trip from the East Coast, and I realized, oh my gosh, this is on tonight at midnight. So I stayed up, and I was like permagrin through the first one. Like I was so happy to be kind of ingesting it. But right before I got on the call with you guys, I put it on with, my girlfriend's family, So there's like 4 kids here, and and the wife and the brother, and like it was heinously boring, I think, for people that don't have no idea. But how many maniacs out there that are just gonna like digest this thing and watch it over again? But I was kind of permanent grin and really enjoying it, and started to take notes around halfway through just because I've like so many things I was thinking about. So the ones I have, if you guys want to refer to, the main one I have, I wrote down all the song titles of the Lennon and McCartney or Beatles songs that we never heard. Now, these aren't real songs. Some of them are like 12-second improvisations, but I think Peter Jackson take liberties to title them and put the songwriters on them. I don't know.
It's just the nature that it's in a right. So now they're being released because they're in this movie, so they have to be copyrighted. So they actually those are all and you see that's the way they're credited too, right? When it's all of them, or it's Lennon McCartney, even if it's just Paul by himself. Yeah, they have to be Lennon and McCartney songs. And so they're all within the they're and all. I'm kind of curious since those songs were written in 1969. But they weren't really published till now, whose song catalog they show up in. But it looks like they gave them to Sony ATV, which is the old Northern Songs catalog. So,
but I also noticed that they and I was going to ask you guys, there were credits of all 4 members. So on some of them, is that like on some of them, are those the ones? I assume those were the new stuff that you guys are referring to, stuff that had never been released.
Well, what I did was anything I've never heard of, I wrote down. And there's like 7 of them. It's just from the first episode, but I will rattle them off. Can you guys still see me? If you'd like me to.
Sure. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, so let's see. I have a bunch of little notes here. Lennon and McCartney songs that were never reckoned. They're called Just Fun, Because I Know You Love Me So, Thinking.
Those are pre-Beatles, actually.
Well, I guess this was during the section where they got to One After 909, so they were talking about, the earliest songs they wrote. Thinking of Linking, Won't You Please Say Goodbye, What Do You Want Me to Make... What do you want me to make of those eyes? Wait, what do you want to make those eyes at me for? That's a good one. You wear your women out, My Imagination, The Castle of the King and the Birds, Commonwealth, and Susie Parker. That's all I got for now. But I thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, there's going to be Beatlemaniacs talking about these songs forever and what they could have been, and fan realizations of them and all that.
So, Chris, what did you? You sat down, you watched the first episode, or in the middle of it. What were you thinking?
That it was, that it was like it looked like a lot of work, and it also was, we were talking about, the way that the sausage gets made, and you have to kind of be careful, and you show it, and you recognize that it's a product, and these guys are working, like they got to go to work. And like, it didn't look like a lot of fun. Like, Mike was saying, it just looked like, man, that place just looks like not conducive to any of that kind of stuff. And just like nobody has a whole lot of stuff, and and there's like everything seemed kind of forced. Like it seemed at first like they were, keenly aware that there's cameras all around them. And I kind of felt that at first, and there's even that scene where George kind of turns and he's just like, so you're going to be, recording our conversations then, and he's just like, and they're like, yeah, we are, right.
Doing it now. And he's like, oh,
it was kind of,
can I ask, sorry.
It was kind of it reminded me of the first movie, and I had watched the first movie, I'll say 2 years ago, just to give it a chance again. After not having seen a job for 20 years. And I remember watching it and just being like, and it was just dreadful. It was just like, why did I watch this? And then I can't help but it just conjured like memories of that as well. It's just in there, for me anyway. And so, it was like, see you around the clubs,
When were those guys last all together playing or recording before we see where this movie picks up? How many months?
Abbey Road
Was Hey Jude after the White Album? Abbey Road hasn't
Hey
happened
Jude
yet.
is the single,
Abbey Road
though.
hasn't
That
happened yet,
predates that.
Hey Jude is the immediate previous single.
Yeah. So John, what month or give?
So Hey Jude is like what? It's in the summer. It's like August. That was I think that comes up as their last single was in August. But remember, the White Album comes out at Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So is there any? So is Hey Jude isn't post White Album recordings, right? I would assume it's kind of part of it, or the beginning of it, maybe even.
But what I thought was interesting was, and Paul brings it up later in the series, is that any other band would have been like, okay, we put the White Album out, let's do a show, and we'll play songs from the White Album. Like, we'll just play a show. Like, and that's pretty recent material. No,
well, you see,
they decide to let's go in the studio, write songs, record them, and do a show on these brand new shows.
Right.
It's amazing to think that anyone would think that they could do that. It's just like it's outrageous.
And in the time frame that they set too, Mike, right? It's like unbelievable.
But Mike, to your
3
point,
weeks.
right? Paul does say that was the original plan. They were going to do a live show for the White Album, and then they said we're always get ahead of ourselves, and so we're like, no, let's write all new songs.
Right. That's the thing that's just like that just would never happen. Like with any like major star, they would never just be like, oh, let's film us trying to create new songs for a show that will culminate like on a TV broadcast. It's just like, just like, guys.
I think you could be, they were confident you could be more daring, but at the same time, what was even then the 3 weeks seemed just, they went to India and wrote the White Album, right? I mean, that's essentially what happened. So I guess they imagined like, well, we went away for a month and we wrote a double record, so we could do an album in that.
Ray, what were you going to say?
I have a couple observations about what you guys are just saying. First one is the whole thing from beginning to end, not really the creation part on film, but like it reminded me of every band. Okay. So like all of a sudden to me, the Beatles become, it's like, okay, like, first of all, we have a backstory that's not necessarily true. And I'll just point that out really quick. I think the George Harrison story leading up to I'll play whatever you want or I won't play. It's like he was being an angel through the whole first kind of until he leaves. Like he was like that thing he says about when I write a song, I feel like it's yours, Paul, and when you write a song, I feel like it's mine, and I can contribute.
But a good song is I said a good song. I feel like
so he's there, he's present, he's talking. They're sort of like sometimes ignoring him, sometimes talking over him. My point about every band is like the tribulations of sort of how you present your song and have people listen to you and sort of like get engaged. So that was one thing. But like the narrative was so different. I felt like he was so helpful, and then he was like not being listened to, and then he just was like, forget it. I got my own stuff to do. I'm out.
When he gets up and walks, it's like it is. I listening to the audio in the past, I never quite got what happened, but seeing the visual of him all of a sudden like just essentially being ignored, while John and Paul are like, and at the same time, in the back of your head, he's been saying, why does he keep talking about Billy Preston so much? And as Chris and I have talked before, it was like because he knew how successful bringing Eric Clapton into the White Album sessions were.
Yeah, but the show never mentions that he's got Billy Preston or like no one ever talks about who the keyboard player might be. They talk about Nicky Hopkins and stuff. Like,
no, they talk about Billy Preston. They talk about
Billy Preston, and then they say, if he's not but he only plays organ. We want a piano player.
They do that in the first episode. I missed that.
I think. Did you guys pick up though in that first episode? I immediately saw it. That tension between McCartney and Harrison now.
I
And
didn't